90%
conversational marketing.
They didn't see you,
I
man.
think a real game changer.
The marketing automation discussion.
Showed on the video here what it looks like, and that's the actual flow from cold outreach all the way through to your CRM. What happens when people engage in which tool and how that relates back to CRM pipeline stages. So the first thing you need to do before you do any of this is really determine, your CRM pipeline stages and determine your CRM, right? What's that CRM going to be? So again, I look for, if I'm a G Suite user, I start there. I want a CRM that works in G Suite. I want the CRM to obviously have an open API and have some really good native integrations with at least a couple of the apps that I use regularly that could even be invoicing stuff, what have you. Copper, again, I mentioned Copper before there. My preferred CRM because they are the preferred Google Apps, G Suite CRM. So we start there and we get this nice UI inside our Gmail to navigate Copper. So now that we have our CRM, then we look back towards cold outreach, and we want to make sure that our cold outreach system is talking to our CRM properly so that if someone is loaded into our CRM, they're automatically pushed up into our cold outreach system, and those two are mirrored. So cold leads into our CRM equals cold leads in our cold outreach system. And then we can manually push them into campaigns depending on how fast we want to reach out, how much outreach we want to do. So when we have Copper, if we did choose Copper, this stack has Persist IQ as your cold outreach.
Yeah.
And if we're looking at prices, the cost to integrate Copper and Persist, as far as the account levels that you need, are both mid-tier. So you're still looking at combined, I think, around $100 and maybe $10 a month, something like that. Now that's for both systems. So it's about, I think, 60 for Copper and another 50 or 60 or so for Persist IQ. And now Persist IQ has a native integration with Copper. What's great about that is it has two-way sync. So if you're used to Zapier, the easiest way to understand this is each Zap is like a one-way push, right? So you can update this app with this information. That's a Zap, right? Now there's new tools like Blender.io and Tray.io that allow you to create flows, but those are still one way, right? So you have to create two flows in order to create that two-way sync. And we want a two-way sync because Copper is connected to your website, right? So you have a form on your website that tells Copper, hey, a new lead is coming in. There's a tag on that lead, and that has a status update of new, whatever that is. Now, that person is then pushed right up to Persist. And if that person already exists in Persist, maybe you did a lead enrichment process, actually, bought that data, enrich that data with your team, then Persist says, oh, no, that person's already in a campaign. No need to add them, right? And then Persist, when someone actually opens an email and replies to an email, Persist will automatically update Copper with a pipeline stage called engaged, right? Or name it whatever you want, approaching, what have you. Approaching is typically when they start a cold sequence, but it updates their status automatically. So you have that two-way sync. Now, if you're used to using like a Mailshake or a Mixmax or, I don't know, name your cold outreach system, will not have a two-way sync with your CRM. So if you're sending those emails out, you've got to be very careful and you've got to update continuously because you have organic traffic, you've got social posts going on, you've got all these other traffic and lead acquisition channels. And if you have cold outreach going on and those aren't talking to your CRM, then there could be that overlap, right? That communication overlap, which is no good. And it's also a waste of money. So now that you have your cold outreach system talking to your CRM in that two-way manner, making sure that leads are updated accordingly as they get engaged, meaning they've replied to your cold outreach. And now they're sitting in your Gmail inbox as well, because when they reply, it's via email, and they're sitting there as a new email in your inbox for you, Donald, the salesperson, to go ahead and open. You've got your Copper strip on the right, which shows, their lead status. It shows what message they received, what they clicked on, all their activity. And now you can deal with them accordingly, send them a Calendly link, whatever, try to get them to a demo. When you do book a demo, that updates the stage in Persist You could have another campaign, more of a demo nurturing campaign in Persist at that point if you would like, but that's up to you. Now let's talk about what happens when you have a LinkedIn messaging system going on. Now in our system right here, we have Copper and Persist. Now that's running CRM and cold emailing. Now to add LinkedIn connections and to make sure that those LinkedIn connections are being added to your CRM automatically when they reply to your message as a lead, we use Orca. Now use Orca.com, USEORCA.com. We use Orca because it's set up for more, I guess you could call it enterprise, but what they've done is they've created an awesome API. It's natively integrated with a few other tools out there. It's got a Zapier app, and it allows us to automatically update our CRM when those people interact with the message on LinkedIn. So we can say, you know what, so-and-so has interacted with the message on LinkedIn, meaning they just, maybe it's just accepted my connection request. As soon as they accept my connection request, I want that person to be in pipeline stage approaching, because right then and there, when it's pipeline stage approaching in my CRM, it gets pushed up to Persist and enters into the cold outreach sequence. So I have a LinkedIn connection sequence going on in useorca.com, and then that gets actually updated in my CRM when someone engages with that sequence, which pushes them up to Persist, and then they enter a cold outreach sequence in Persist, right? Now, let's say you use Facebook lead ads, right?
Sure.
That's another aspect of our cold or our,
kind of warm inbound a little bit. Yeah,
user acquisition channel, right? So when you have cold lead ads, Facebook lead ads going on, or any lead ads, it could be LinkedIn lead ads. What I like to do is have sort of an offset Google Sheet. And this Google Sheet is comprised of Facebook lead ads coming in automatically. And how we do that automatically is via Leads Bridge, is what I like to use. But if you have a little bit more money and you want to, make this a really cool flow, meaning add multiple apps and connect all of them in one UI, use blender.io. It's blendr.io. But Leads Bridge is really inexpensive, and you can create enough bridges to make the system work. So you have Facebook lead ads and LinkedIn lead ads, let's just say, going into a Google Sheet. That same Google Sheet is the Google Sheet that you have VAs, virtual assistants, enriching data. So those VAs are going after email addresses, LinkedIn profiles, whatever data you need of new audiences. So they're all putting data into your Google Sheet, because you don't want to have VAs with multiple accounts in your CRM uploading data. You want it to be sort of a side repository of information. So I have my Facebook lead ads, my LinkedIn lead ads, and my cold enriched data going into Google Sheets. And the reason we put it into Google Sheets is not only because we don't want our VAs with logins to our CRM, but also because we want to verify that data before we push it up into our CRM. We don't want unverified data in our CRM. So you put it into a Google Sheet. Now you can run Bright Verify or whatever verification you want on the data in your Google Sheet. And that's, lead ads coming in as well as enriched data. The enriched data, you should already have a verification step in there from your VAs. But either way, you don't. Now, Google Sheets gets pushed right into your CRM as soon as you update the column in the Google Sheet to approaching or whatever you want to update it to, because you have a Leads Bridge that says any row in this Google Sheet with a status of, like, if column H equals approaching, push into my CRM, right?
Yeah.
And they go up into Persist, and then they get wrapped up in the cold outreach system, right? But if they already exist in your CRM because they came through a lead form on your website, or they got into a LinkedIn conversation, obviously the system works so that they don't get a duplicate message. So lead ads from LinkedIn and Facebook going into a Google Sheet, VAs enriching the Google Sheet with data, Google Sheet going into Copper as soon as you update or add a final column for whatever that stage is, whatever that approaching stage is, and then they get pushed in automatically through the Leads Bridge.